Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the zoning adjustment for April 6, 2023. Please rise as we start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so good evening, everyone, and let's start by introducing ourselves. To our far left, please.
Jim Dietzel.
Gaspar Bimba.
Richard Tripp.
Crystal Morin, Secretary.
And I am Lynn Perkins, Chair.
Donald Burgess.
Michael Donlin.
And we have Code Enforcement Officer Robert Mackey all the way down to the far right. And we have our clerk, Miss Ginny Rio, will be here taking the minutes for the evening. So before we proceed, allow me, please let me make some announcements. In the event of an emergency, please exit to the rear of the room. Do not use an elevator. Somebody will come and assist you. Please shut off all cell phones, iPhones, iPads, anything that could create a distraction to the proceedings. These proceedings are scheduled to terminate at 10 p.m. and they are audio-video recorded. Okay. First item on the agenda was appointment of officers for this board. Whereas Mr. Corbett is not with us this evening, I'll take a motion to table that to the next scheduled meeting. Thank you, Mr. Tripp. Could I have a second, please?
Sure,
Second.
Mr. Burgess has a second. All in favor of tabling the appointment of officers, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Very good. So we'll go on with our first case of the evening, which is 71 Birch Street, LLC, and that's case number 23-108. And Mr. Donlin, sorry. You're sitting on this case, please.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Maynard. How are you?
Good. Nice to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you, Mr. Benedict. Well, you recall our protocols. Open, if you would, with the 5 criteria.
Sure.
And your introduction, and then we'll barrage you with questions and so on.
Gotcha. All right. So we're here tonight for a variance to section, sorry. I had it written here real quick. Variance to sections, Article 6, Section 163-65D, 2 and 3, for a minimum, where a minimum frontage of 125 feet is required in a Class 5 road, and a minimum lot width of 125 feet is required. As we read into the 5 points here, number 1, the variance will not be contrary to the public interest because granting of this variance will not be contrary to the public interest because single-family homes are allowed in the OMB district. The property has additional building area along Birch Street, and that portion of the lot along Eden Street has other residential homes. It's a residential neighborhood, and we're proposing a residential building which would fit into the character of that street. Better than if we were to utilize that rear area of our lot for uses in the OMB district, commercial type of development being specifically that. The only thing we're asking for relief for is frontage and the lot width requirement. All other zoning requirements will be met. 2, the spirit of the ordinance is observed because the purpose and spirit of the ordinance is to allow for spacing between structures. In this case, this proposal places the new house outside of any setbacks. The only thing the lot is deficient in is the frontage and the width. All other regulatory requirements will be met. With the shape of the property, it makes more sense to subdivide this residential area of the lot off from the proposed commercial development that will be along Birch Street. Substantial justice is done because this will allow the property owner to subdivide a portion of their property that abuts other residential homes from the parent lot that will be developed in a commercial manner. This will keep the residential homes near other residential properties. 4, the values of surrounding properties are not diminished because the new home will be of similar size and quality to other homes in the area, and this will only increase the value of this lot and should not impact any of the other surrounding properties. Under 5, little literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would result in an unnecessary hardship. For the purpose of this subparagraph, unnecessary hardship means that owing to special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area. One, no fair and substantial relationship exists between the general public purpose of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision to this property. This lot's shape, size, and configuration technically creates two buildable areas. The first is along Birch Street, and this area will be developed in accordance with the OMB district. A wetland then separates that area along Birch Street from the frontage along Eden Street. Although Eden Street portion does not meet the minimum required frontage, the lot's configuration allows for setbacks to be met for construction of a residential home in that area. The proposed use is a reasonable one because this request will allow for a residential home to be constructed meeting the minimum building setbacks and lot area, which will keep the land adjacent to Eden Street with a residential use near other residential homes. And under B, if the criteria in subparagraph A are not established, an unnecessary hardship will be deemed to exist if and only if, owing to special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area, the property cannot be reasonably used in strict conformance with the ordinance, and a variance is therefore necessary to enable a reasonable use of it. The lot shape, the configuration of the property, fragment the developable areas of the lot, and there will be and there's not the ability for the property owner to purchase any additional land along Eden Street to make the new lot meet the minimum 125 feet of frontage and the lot width as required in the OMB district.
So by all means, if you have anything else in your
Sure.
layman's terms,
Yep.
off the statuted script, feel free.
All right. So as we kind of talked about a little bit about this, we have a 4-acre lot. It has a substantial amount of frontage along Birch Street and Kendall Pond Road. The property was developed years ago. Those buildings have been raised. As I stated in the write-up, there is this wetland that kind of bisects the land, so there kind of creates two developable areas, the first along Birch Street and Kendall Pond, and then this rear area along Eden Street. As I said, the area along Eden Street is a bunch of residential homes. We want to subdivide that portion off. We think it makes a good area for a residential property that could stay next to other residential homes that are in that area. Although our frontage on Eden Street doesn't meet the 125 feet required in the ordinance of the width, our proposal actually places the building area about 215 feet back from Eden Street. The lot at that location, it's about 105 feet wide. That'll allow for a decent-sized home to be built on that lot, meeting all of the building setback. As we look at lot sizing, there is some sewer in the street further up Eden Street. From what I was able to find for plans, it looks like it's more of a force main scenario. So what we did is we sized this lot based upon the minimum lot size in the OMB district for a single-family home, which is an allowed use. We sized this for a 3-bedroom property, so the way that ordinance is in the regulation. The minimum land area is 1 acre. That's for a 2-bedroom house primarily. It talks about if you want to increase that in bedrooms, you got to have 10,000 square feet for every additional 250 or 200 gallons per day, I'm sorry. So that puts us at a minimum land area of 56,060 square feet on a septic, and this property we're proposing is 56,133 square feet. Ultimately, this leaves the commercial land with about 2.72 acres still to be developed in the commercial fashion on that side of the property. I can answer any questions you might have. We can go from there.
The floor is open to the board. Any members wish to start off with any questions? Seeing none? Okay.
I have some.
Ms. Moran?
I was referencing your meeting minutes from October. And in October, there were a couple things that were stated about the Eden Street. One of the abutters had asked if there was going to be a building put there, and you guys had responded with no. So what is the change?
No, that's not what he asked. He asked if there was going to be an entrance off of that road to the commercial property, and we said no.
Okay.
That's what he had asked.
And then the other thing had brought up restrictions on the deed.
What was that?
The restriction on the deed about no residential? I think
That's,
this-
my lawyer has taken care of that
Okay.
with ExxonMobil.
Yeah, if I may, my name is Daniel
Can you
Corey.
please sit down?
Hold on just a second. Why don't I have you
Okay.
step back for just a second? So I think Mrs. Moran's point was that the part of the grace that this board granted was under the impression that it was not that the deed restricted any development of residential use.
That's
And that
correct.
the hardship that was depicted was that there was limited use of this property, which is why your commercial approach was seen in a positive light.
That's correct.
And so what you're telling us, or about to tell us, is that you would have changed that deed?
Yes, with ExxonMobil. They're the ones that had the restrictions on the deed.
Okay. Ms. Moran, I'll defer to you, and if you'd like to have the applicant's attorney speak at this time, that's fine.
I would, just because that was a big one.
Yeah, okay.
Is that part of it was the deed restriction created a hardship for the property.
Thank you. Daniel Corley, McGrath Law Firm, representing Mr. Benedict, and 71 Birch Street LLC. So we've been conferring with ExxonMobil. We reached out to them. They've been very cooperative. What we've done is that they have a deed that's in place, and what the deed basically states is they don't want to be sued or have any claims going forward for contamination, hazardous materials. He's already done his study, which we provided to Exxon. They're satisfied with that there is no contamination, there is no hazardous materials. They never used the property. And so what we're doing right now is they requested a red line version of the deed that's in existence now, what we're going to be taking out. They're in agreement with that, so we are now working on the language that will permit his project for both commercial and residential that he's doing at this point. So it will probably take, I expect it will probably be resolved within the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Well, I'm a little foggy on this, because what you're telling us is that Exxon wanted you to assure that they would not be held liable for something that they did not have in place and that you're going to put in place as the rightful owner.
Well, here's the issue. There was a big lawsuit in New Hampshire where all the oil companies way back, I don't know, Attorney General brought the action, and there were damages of about over $140 million, if I remember correctly.
These are not PFOAs, this is what? The contamination?
MTBE.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this has nothing to do with MTBE, but they're very careful about any properties that they've had in the past. So they want to make sure that Dave is going to hold them harmless and indemnify them, which he's already agreed to do. We've been in conference with their lawyers and with their engineers and Zoom meetings, and we're in the process of now working this whole thing out. So, and they say it's not unusual for this to happen. This seems to be a boilerplate language they put in a lot of their deeds to protect themselves going forward in the future, so they don't have a lawsuit 20 years from now if something pops up. But the thing is, he did do his, what was the study you did? The environmental study, had a full environmental study done. That's been provided to Exxon. The property's clean.
Is what you're saying that the concern would be that the MTB would be in the ground for a gas station that wasn't there, so therefore ExxonMobil's idea was to try and make sure residents couldn't go in there?
No, it's not so much MTBE, but that was the lawsuit that was here in New Hampshire years ago. It could be any contamination, any hazardous materials. They're very, in their deed, they're very careful about having a school built on there, having a doctor's office built there, a hospital built there. This is what they have in their deed. So we're working out that language now. And again, that's all boilerplate language that they have. We could share the deed, but most of that language is coming out because he will He did have a study done, and it shows the property is clean. It's not focused on MTBE. It could be anything. It could be tanks that were buried in the past, which they haven't been. There's been no tanks buried in the past. There's been no contamination in the past. And if I remember correctly, there was just a small house that was on there, the residential house that was grandfathered in or something. But, so they understand Dave's position, and they're working with him, and they just, right now, we're exchanging the red line version. We just got it done, the red line version of the deed, because the deed was like 10 pages long. So we're going to probably get that to them tomorrow to start working on the language.
Well, and I think to Mrs., we may come back to this at a later point, but Mrs. Moran's point is, and I would concur with her, is that one of the persuasive comments that was made about this property was the fact that it was restricted from any residential use.
Right.
So regardless of what the boilerplate language is that ExxonMobil is trying to protect themselves from, there was still that argument that was made that I think that probably persuaded the board on this a bit. Maybe not in full, but certainly had something to do with it.
Sure. Sure, I understand. So, again, he's cooperating, and Exxon's cooperating.
Okay.
I think that the part about the residential house, that was more geared up towards the front lot, because this idea never existed before.
Right.
So they were talking about where I was going to have my office. That's where we were talking about, there's not going to be any residential there. And then after I bought it, we looked further into it, and if we subdivide it, we can make a beautiful house lot right there for a nice family to move into. But it really didn't, that conversation back in October had nothing to do with that back lot. It was just the front lot with the, right on.
Well, and I understand that, except that you were here for a variance, a setback off of open water,
Correct.
and what was stated was the fact that the area of that open water is shared between the two contiguous lots. So there was a 1 acre stipulation in there. I don't recall it exactly at this second, but the conversation in that meeting was that both of these lots, or that wet area was spread out over both lots.
Well, those two lots are right out front on Birch Street.
Okay.
The lot we're talking about is on the other side of the wetlands, and it abuts Eden Street. So it's got nothing to do with the two front lots. You won't even see the house
I understand.
from Birch Street.
Yeah.
So, again, this was an afterthought after we purchased the property.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're just trying to subdivide it into that, to build a nice house for somebody, and be a great, tax for the town of Derry. And it's a lot that should have a house on it. There's nothing, there's just a lot doing anything right now. It's just not doing anything. It's like the perfect lot for a house. If you ever walked over it, you know what I was talking about?
Well, I would say that a perfect lot would be a lot that had 125 feet of frontage as it was required with the exact area on it, so then you wouldn't have to be sitting here with us,
No, I know.
right?
I know. But for a young couple, for a homeowner, it's a great spot for a house. Just for there's really no negatives about it at all. It's going to help some family. It's going to help the town of Derry in taxes. It's going to help me continue with my building that I want to put out front from the money that we'll make off of the house. So it's kind of like it's just a win-win situation for everybody.
Okay. All right, well, I'm satisfied, Mrs. Moran. This was your introduction to have the attorney speak. Are you all set, or you have any
I am.
follow-up?
Mr. Chair, may I
You may.
ask a question? Who or what is 71 Burt Street LLC? You're a member?
I own it.
You own it?
Yeah.
Are you in good standing with the Secretary of State?
Yes.
You weren't dissolved?
No, it's a brand-new LLC. We just opened it.
When was it founded?
Excuse me?
When was it founded?
About 2 weeks before we closed on it, so maybe 6 months ago.
Okay, I just want to know who we need to contact should there be some sort of,
Discrepancy?
discrepancy. Should there be, you don't comply with our terms,
It would be me.
it would be you. You're the primary member
Correct.
of the LLC. Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Donlin?
Thinking back on the other case as well, I'm remembering a lot of, we're cleaning that up for the neighbors and solar panel this, and I don't think the timing is coincidental, I guess. So I'm still trying to wrap my head around the substantial justice. I don't have any direct questions at this particular time.
Very good. Mr. Burgess, anything from you?
This proposed home is about how far from the wetlands?
Probably, it definitely meets all the setbacks from the
It wouldn't
wetland.
meet the setbacks, okay. So it's over 30 feet, 30 feet or over.
Yeah, it's quite a ways from the wetlands.
Okay.
All set, Mr. Burgess?
Yep.
Mr. Tripp or Mr. Obimba?
I have a couple questions.
Yep.
So these restrictions in the deed, they would not restrict you putting your plumbing building there,
No, that,
but it would restrict you from putting a residence there.
yes.
Okay, so when we gave you the variance earlier, you were compliant with the restrictions,
Correct.
okay? I don't know what the other gentleman's function is, but I did notice that there's a septic there. So the septic does not, the town septic does not come down to your lot?
No. It's on, it's actually, you know where the Speedway gas station is? It stops in their parking lot. So it doesn't go to like the cow lot, or it doesn't go up Eden Street. City water does, but no city septic.
Oh. Well, the Speedway's across the road, right?
You would think it would, but it's just, they stopped.
That's just the way the septic's laid out, I take it. Okay,
Yeah, they stopped at Speedway, and of course, with the new fire station going in, it's going to be, I did talk to the town about me hooking up onto it, and we have to drill underneath the street to tie into it.
so you don't have septic at your plumbing building?
No, it's going to be hooked onto the city septic.
Oh, so the septic is available to the area of your lot that is...
That's correct, the new lot.
But it is on
It would
Birch
have
Street?
its own septic
But the
system.
septic is not available going to Eden
No.
Street? Okay,
It's not.
well,
I wish it was, and I could make it a lot smaller.
you wouldn't have to put a septic in.
If you don't have city septic, you have to have 1 acre, one
Yeah.
full acre,
Yeah, I know.
which is okay.
Yeah, it's,
It makes a nice lot. It really does.
I was going to say,
And also,
they're going to have a great backyard.
they're going to have a great backyard and a big front yard. Also, the driveway 2 streets up had the exact same problem I had. They had 75 feet of frontage, and he came in front of you guys, and you guys okayed it, and he built a nice house on it, too. Just 2 driveways up.
Well, I think they'll have a long front yard.
Yeah, it's going to be quite a ways. It's going to be set back and behind all the houses that are there.
Yeah.
So it'll be kind of like really private in the woods.
Yeah, okay. Well, I don't have any other questions at this point.
Mr. Obimba, you all set?
I am.
Okay, so we can, if you'd like, I think Mr. Benedict's attorney can step aside. Mr. Maynard, you can come back up and join us again. Thank you. And I think some questions came up for some clarity on the septic, and I know you touched on it.
Yeah.
I myself didn't hear everything you said, it just muffled, so.
All right, so my research at Town Hall showed that the very far end of Eden Street has sewage, municipal sewer, but it's by force main. It looked like those houses that are up past us have a force main that goes up the street and ties into a line at the far end of Eden Street. So it's not readily available to our lot without tearing up the street. So we sized this lot based upon the regulation, which says minimum of 1 acre, and for that 1 acre gives you 200 gallons per day. If you want more than 200 gallons per day, it was, I wrote it down right here. So if you want more than that for capacity, you got to have 10,000 square feet for every additional 200 gallons per day. Okay. So what that means, to get us to a 3-bedroom house, which is 450 gallons per day, we need to add an additional 12,500 square feet to the 1 acre zoning, which puts our lot at a minimum area of 56,060 square feet. We've sized the lot at 56,133 square feet, so it's over the lot size requirement based upon having an on-site septic system.
So something I miss here, which is how many gallons per day is a bedroom estimated?
New Hampshire uses 150 gallons per day per bedroom, okay. So 3 bedrooms is 450 gallons per day. So the 1 acre gets you your first 200 gallons per day, and then anything above that, above it's 10,000 square feet for every 200 gallons per day above that. So.
But does the 1 acre give you everything you need for the 3-bedroom?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Actually, from DES standpoints, that 1 acre, this could be a 4-bedroom house under their guidelines and standards.
Well, I guess that's where I was getting confused, because it sounded like you could meet it with the 3-bedroom but you went on to talk about the 56 or 52.
Well, the lot area, in order, under the ordinance, under the OMB ordinance, I need 56,060 square feet for a 3-bedroom house in this zone. So we have about 100 square feet more than that requirement for a 3-bedroom house in this zone. But the restriction on bedrooms is strictly the lot size in this zone. It's okay. DES, it'd be a 4-bedroom house.
Got it. Okay. Very good. Mr. Maynard is the engineer, so does anybody have any engineering questions beyond that?
No, thank you.
No? No? Mr. Tripp?
So you do have city water?
Yeah, it's my understanding water's there. Yeah. So.
Does the city sewer go from Speedway back down Rockingham
Yes.
Road heading towards Clam Haven, and then it intersects at
And
the
what I've
brook,
been
right?
told is there's a dry line in Birch Street in front of us, but it was a planned extension from years ago that was never tied in.
Okay.
So there's a dry line in front of us that doesn't go anywhere.
Right.
So in order for Dave to tie into that for the commercial side, he'd have to directional bore under Birch Street to tie into the manhole on the other side of Speedway.
Couple of picks and shovels on a weekend, and you're there, right?
It might actually be easier just to put a septic on that lot, because a commercial building isn't going to really need a lot of sewer loading capacity. It's probably about 300 gallons per day for the type of use that he's putting on this property. Okay. So it'll be kind of one of those things, is it worth extending sewer by directional boring, or is it just easier to put a septic on that piece of property too?
Got it. Okay. Very good. Anything else, Mr. Tripp?
Not at this time.
Okay, very good. Let's go over to Mr. Mackey and get your impressions.
So just so everybody's clear, hopefully everybody's clear, they have the plan as to exactly what's being proposed. You have the lot where the variance was granted, then there's basically a wetland that goes through the middle, and then they're obviously looking to create this lot out onto Eden Street. So one thing I would bring up, just as a clarification on the septic, and the way I would interpret it, it does say, as far as the lot size go, without public sewer, it is 1 acre plus 10,000 square feet for each 200 gallons per day of sewage effluent after the first 200 gallons per day. But there is an unless there. Unless the owner can show adequate plans for sewage disposal on a smaller lot, which I would interpret to say, in theory, if you can show a 3-bedroom on a 1 acre, you could do that. And obviously, the proof would be getting it approved through DES, but anyway. Other than that, office business district, I think one of the few commercial districts that does allow for single-family residences. Most of them, it's not a permitted use. As you know, and it's already been brought out, the variance that was granted for the setback to the wetland for the commercial building that's going to be built on Schutt's Corner in the future, that hasn't yet been to the planning board for a site plan approval. Beyond that, if this were to be approved by the board, obviously, next step would be the planning board subdivision approval. And then you've already talked about that deed restriction, which would obviously have to be cleared up before any permit could be granted.
I do have one additional question.
Mr. Tripp?
All right, so you meet all the setbacks.
Yes.
So the size of the building is determined by how far back in the lot you are.
Yeah, so because of the limited frontage at Eden Street, the lot widens out at about 180 feet back. The lot gets to be a little over 100 feet wide, and then it starts to get even wider than that as you go back. So we placed the house at about 210 feet back, which got us outside of all the side setbacks, all the regulatory things that are in this zone, so that it would, and we put a pretty decent sized house box on the plan just to show that it could work in that location.
So I'm assuming that the house box that you're showing, if there was a lot, it would be included in that box.
Yeah, I think I oversized it, so anything might.
Did I say garage was included?
Yeah, there is a
Okay.
garage included in that footprint.
Okay,
Yep.
because if it wasn't, then you'd be in danger of violating the setbacks, I
Yeah.
would think.
No,
Okay.
I included that inside of,
Okay, thank
of
you.
this footprint.
Okay. Anybody else? No? Okay. Very good. Folks, gentlemen, you have an opportunity to wrap up, and before we go to public, anything left to let us know about?
No, I just, as we talked about, I think this kind of breaks apart the lot so that it keeps the residential uses next to the other residential uses. You know, that rear area technically under the OMB could be additional commercial space of some kind, but this kind of creates a buffer and a permanent buffer from the residential homes to the commercial development that's going to be proposed on Birch Street, so.
Okay. All right, very good. Well, let's make a call to public, and as we do that, we'll have some phone numbers to post for anyone who may be remote and that wishes to be heard in this matter. In the event that you are remote and you wish to call in, we have phone numbers for you, and those are going to flash up there, Mr. Preventure?
Yes, they are. The folks at home can see those now, Mr.
Oh,
Chair.
good. So we have phone number 646-558-8656. At the prompting, please enter the meeting ID number, which is 323-909-140. In the event that you're having a technical difficulty getting through, you can phone the, I seem to be missing our phone number to over there, Mrs. Rio.
I have it right here.
You do 845-5585. You'll contact the clerk, and she will help connect you in for any technical problems that you may have. That being said, the call for public input is first for anyone who wishes to support this application, and you may come up at this time and let your thoughts be heard. And in the event that you are remote, please just press *9, and we will direct you in to hear any comments you may have. So seeing no one rise in the room here, and that we've given some ample time for anybody remotely to get queued in. Anybody there, Mr. Preventure?
Seeing none rise, Mr. Chair.
Very good, thank you. So we'll now make a call to anyone who is not in support of this application that would like to be heard. This would be your opportunity to come up and be heard as well. And likewise, the phone numbers that are posted are an opportunity for anyone who is remote to be able to phone in as well. Do we see anybody out there now, Mr. Provencher?
Mr. Chair, I suggested we repeat instructions. We did have some phone callers dial in very recently in the past couple of moments, so we will remind them that to raise their hand, they would press *9, and then to unmute themselves once recognized would be *6.
Very good. By the way, did they pick up your directions, or am I the only one?
I'm sorry,
Did
Mr.
those
Chair.
remote people hear your directions?
I believe they did, yes,
Very
Mr.
good.
Chair.
Okay, thank you. So I won't be redundant, but in the event that you are out there and didn't pick up on that, please press *9 to be brought into the meeting, and that way we can hear you or see that you and acknowledge you. If you're having technical problems, again, it's 845-5585 to bring you into the meeting. Seeing no one rise here in opposition to the application at this time, and how are we looking there remotely, Mr.
Seeing none rise, Mr. Chair.
Very good. So we'll assume that we will presume that we've met the statutes required for butter input on this, and we can close that option in the hearing. If there are no further questions from the board and nothing left from Mr. Maynard to address or Mr. Benedict, I suppose we can take a motion and go into deliberation.
I'll make the motion to go into deliberative session.
Mr. Burgess is confident his questions are all taken care of, so therefore he has the motion, which needs a second.
I'll second that.
Mr. Donlin has a second on that motion. Thank you, sir. All in favor of going into deliberation, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. All righty. And anybody wish to make any comments regarding the application itself? Mr. Donlin, you wish to lead off, or?
Sure. I believe where my mind is kind of going with this now is that I do believe that restricting this to, or not restricting, but making it so that it is residential from now on is certainly in the benefit of the neighborhood for it to not be commercial, although there was no proposed commercial, although I guess this would eliminate that option. So I do find that certain satisfying the first order of contrary to public interest for sure.
Okay.
I'm kind of working down the list still in my mind.
You want to come back to you?
Please.
Mr. Tripp?
I believe that this meets the 5 criteria, because as Mr. Donlin said, it's not contrary to public interest, as otherwise it'd be just useless land if the building was not built there. Spirited ordinance is observed. I believe that's the case. Due to the way the lot is laid out, there's plenty of land here. It's just that it's a long, narrow piece instead of a square piece like the rest of the other pieces available in this area. And I think that allowing residents to be built there is a perfect use of the land. I think that maybe in the conditions set, we would specify that would be the only use and not any of the other uses in the office medical district that are permitted.
Very good. Is that it, Mr. Tripp?
Yes, it is.
Okay, Mrs. Moran?
I agree with what has been stated. It's 3 bedrooms. It's not overly sized.
Okay.
My concern is the deeds, though, but that will have to be taken care of before they move further.
Mm-hmm. So you don't find the application to be excessive in its request. I think piggybacking off of Mr. Tripp's comments, the landmass area, as testimony is given, seems adequate for this and seems appropriate in Mr. Tripp's view. Mr. Burgess.
Although the lot is, doesn't have proper frontage, there were probably other lots in that area. They mentioned one that was in that same amount of frontage that's on the road. So it's not, I think it's more in the spirit of the ordinance because of the simple fact that the other homes in the area have similar conditions.
Okay. You find the sculpting of the neighborhood and the lot lines create a hardship at all, Mr. Burgess?
I don't think so.
Okay. At one point, the parcels were carved up. Understanding that area probably 100 years ago.
This is kind of like when we go around the lake where those lots are small, the frontage is small. When we did the zoning, they enlarged it so it wouldn't be as much crowding. So when you get in a new development, you have the room to chop that up into 100, 200, whatever it is for that particular area. This is something we can't do anything more about. It's there, it's going to, it's never going to change.
Okay.
Unless somebody sells a house and they buy the other one and combine them together, that's it.
Mr. Donlin, anything further?
I think I'm satisfied with the comments that have been had.
Okay, very good. You feel that everybody else has rounded out the discussion pretty well?
I do.
All right. Yeah, and I think I've kind of shown my hand on the difficulty with older neighborhoods is that when they're set up and they're subdivided and sometimes traded at a poker game on a hot July evening, can alter and create an issue later on in life that no one can foresee. So I certainly can understand that hardship. My concern earlier off of Mrs. Moran's comments about the former testimony certainly had me concerned a bit. I do understand, however, the corporate aspect of this, and they're protecting themselves. I'm not sure how that transfers over into a deed of the current ownership, but I'm not an attorney either, and perhaps one day I'll get a better grasp of how that's altered after the fact. But at any rate, let's structure a motion. Subject to obtaining all state and town permits and inspections is our norm. And this, of course, will require planning board subdivision approval before it can go forward. Does anybody else have any conditions they would like to see on this structured or added to the already mentioned 2 conditions?
Can we mention something about what their issue is about the deed?
Mr. Mackey said it has to be cleared up before they can get a
Right,
permit.
but I mean, to the planning board. So, please check to make sure that type of thing.
Well, I think that the purview goes over to, under that first condition, subject to state and town permits and
Okay.
inspections.
All right.
Code enforcement would not let this move forward, and the normal process, the preferred process when in question is to go to zoning first, planning second, and then once that happens, it automatically goes through the eyes of the code enforcement and building department. So I think that all takes care of itself naturally, as we've already stipulated, the way we've already stipulated. So other than that, Mr. Tripp, you all set with conditions?
Well, there are a number of permitted uses for the office medical district, and I believe that the residential use is a good use in this particular case. I don't know whether uses for like bank, bed and breakfast, brew pub, and other things, the lot lends itself to that. So I would maybe make a condition that the other uses in the office medical district are restricted.
Okay. I think in this regard, we'll take the application as it's presented, which is for a residence. Anything further, we would be coming back here anyway if somebody were to propose a bank entrance on Eden Street. Am I correct, Mr. Mackey? Yeah.
That's correct.
All right, very good. So
Okay.
we'll stay with the application as
simple.
it's presented, so. And I appreciate that point of view also, by the way, because at first I had apprehensions about this application, but seeing how it's, the entrance to it is, certainly makes more sense there than an exit in and out for a plumbing or a bank, a plumbing supply house or a bank. So at that point, I think we've satisfied the conditions. So with that, we can take a motion to come out of deliberative session.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Tripp.
I'll second that.
And Mr. Burgess as the second. All in favor of coming out of deliberation, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Mrs. Moran, you have a motion to read.
Thank you. I make a motion on case number 23-108, 71 Birch Street, LLC, to grant a variance to the terms of Article 6, Section 165-35.d.2 and 3 of the Town of Derry zoning ordinance to allow the property to be subdivided into 2 lots, with the newly created lot having less than the required frontage and lot width on Eden Street. A single-family dwelling is proposed to be constructed on the new lot, 71 Birch Street, parcel ID 28001, zoned OMB, as presented with the following conditions. We had 2. 1, subject to obtaining all state and town permits and inspections. 2, planning board subdivision approval required. And that concludes the reading of the motion. I need a second.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Burgess.
Excuse me.
And before we proceed, that motion is on the floor. Let me read finding of fact in this case. Now, this application was for subdivision of a parcel which had already been granted a variance. The variance request was an appeal for frontage and lot width requirement. The property is located in the Office Medical Business District, and Eden Street already has permitted residential homes. All in favor of that finding of fact, could I have a motion, please?
I'll make the motion.
On the finding of fact, I'm sorry, I
Finding
took
of
us out of
facts.
sequence.
Yep.
Go ahead, Mr. Burgess.
I'll make the motion on the finding of facts.
Very good. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Very good. All in support of the finding of fact, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Now, going back to our other motion, moving the motion, all in favor of moving the motion for a vote, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. So let me poll the board. Mr. Burgess,
I'm going to vote yes.
okay. Mr. Donlin,
I'm going to vote yes as well, specifically for the criteria 1 and 4. Certainly, I believe all 5 have been met, but the diminished value of the properties, surrounding properties, is residential use is certainly an easier find for me over a commercial use in that lot.
very good, thank you. And Mr. Tripp,
I vote yes.
okay. Mrs. Moran?
And Chair, I vote yes as well.
Very good. The chair will make it unanimous as well, so the application's approved by a vote of 5-0, so congratulations. Anybody, of course, aggrieved by this decision has 30 days to request a rehearing. Following that, recourse would be to Superior Court.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good, you too.
Chairman. Mr. Chairman,
Sir.
I would like to step down and let someone else speak.
Okay, very good, thank you. All right, we'll call the next case up, which would be Johan Hispa. And Mr. Dietzel, Mrs. Rio, Mr. Burgess stepped down for an alternate. Mr. Dietzel, would you sit, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And also in place of Mr. Corbett, Mr. Obimba, would you sit, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Very good, thank you. And good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Barry Geyer. I'm with Jones and Beach Engineers here for the applicant.
And welcome. Your first visit with us.
Yes, I believe so.
Oh, we're going to make this special. Just kidding.
Yeah?
Mr. Geyer, correct?
Correct, sir.
All right, so we just ask that you open with the application as it's presented, and then we'll give you opportunity to put it in your own words and expound. I don't want to jinx us, but there's just over 2 hours left, so.
Okay. Thank you.
You have the floor.
The existing property is a lot of record consisting of 34.3 acres in the low-density residential zone, which requires 200 feet of frontage and 200 feet of width at the setback and 3 acres of land. We're here tonight seeking a variance to allow construction of a single-family home on a non-conforming lot. The lot is non-conforming as it's less than the required 200 feet of frontage on Moore Hill Road and less than 200 feet of width at the front setback. As to the criteria, number one is the variance will not be contrary to the public interest because proposal is to construct a single-family home on an existing lot of record in a residential zone and will therefore not be contrary to the public interest. Two is the spirit of the ordinance is observed because the intent of the, the intent of the ordinance is to prevent construction on undersized lots. The existing lot is approximately 34.3 acres. Construction is proposed in the rear of the lot, and therefore the spirit of the ordinance is observed. Number three, a substantial justice is done because the parcel is an existing lot of record over 34.3 acres. Allowing construction of a single-family home would do substantial justice. Number four is the value of surrounding properties are not diminished because single-family homes are allowed in this district and the house will be located at the back of the 34.3 acre parcel. Number five is that literal enforcement of the revisions of the ordinance would result in an unnecessary hardship. A, for purpose of this subparagraph, unnecessary hardship means owing to a special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area. I, that no fair and substantial relationship exists between the general public purpose of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision to the property. And the purpose of the ordinance is to limit the residential density in the zone. The existing lot is over 34 acres. There is no fair and substantial relationship between the purpose and the application of that purpose to this parcel. And II is the proposed use is a reasonable one, and we believe that the construction of a single-family home on 34.3 acres is a reasonable one.
All righty. You wish to proceed?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of clear cut where we don't have the required frontage. It's a very large lot. We're asking for one single-family home to be located on it. And with that, I'll gladly take any questions from the board.
What's the frontage you have? About 60 feet, is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. And is the 60 feet supposedly right where the entrance off of Warner Hill Road is, and that's it?
Correct.
I think I glanced at the deed. How long has the owner had this parcel?
He just recently purchased it in the last couple months.
Okay. And so this is an odd-looking map in that it looks like the access, which is as you've indicated, Gill Road hits Warner Hill Road, is it not contiguous? Is it broken up or interrupted? Can you define that?
The ownership of Gill Road appears that at the entrance of Warner Hill, it is the subject lot that owns that. Further down is owned by a different entity, but the deed includes access to it. Obviously, when they deeded it back in the 40s, they included an access easement.
And the easement is on the deed?
Correct.
Okay. The road indicates, I think out at Warner Hill Road, is a private road, correct?
Gill Road is a private road.
Okay. But is it Mr. Hispa?
Correct.
Yep. He, I lost my train of thought there. Let me step back, however, and anybody else have any questions that they wish to start with?
I'll ask some questions. There's some other lots shown on this large drawing. It's like map 27, lot 24, and map 725. Are those the only access to Warner Road along Gill Road?
Correct.
So there are presently other lots using Gill Road as access to Warner Road?
Correct.
All right, and they, I don't know if the other deeds show the easement, but your deed does.
I believe theirs includes it as well. Or, I can't guarantee that, but ours does include an easement.
But your deed shows an access easement across their property.
Correct, down Gill Road.
Thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Tripp?
Not right now.
All right, Mr. Obimba.
I had similar questions as Mr. Tripp. Just wanted to know if these other lots do have their deeds noting that easement on Gill Road, but looks like you answered.
I believe that is the case, yes.
Mr. Dietzel, anything from you?
I have no questions for the applicant, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So who's responsible for maintaining the road? You see the private way, it's broken up. There's a jog in the lot line. Then that road continues out to Warner Hill Road. How is responsibility of this maintenance?
That I do not know.
And of course, that's one of the issues here, is that it's not a town-maintained road, so in its, whatever this board may do may have to reflect that. Okay, Mr. Burgess, or Mr. Donlin, either of you have any questions?
Not at this time, sir.
I have a question.
Mr. Tripp?
On the other lots out there, like lot 26 and 27 and 25, 24, are there buildings on those lots?
I know 27, and there is a lot on 27, which is the end of Gill Road. All the other ones, I can't, and I believe 26, I can't guarantee. I just drove it recently, and I can't recall if those had buildings on them or not. But there are multiple houses out there.
Are these residences?
Yeah, they're residences.
So at some point, there was permission to build those homes?
I can probably answer that, Mr. Tripp.
Let me open it right up to you, Mr. Mackey. Go ahead.
I think on lot 725 and 726 each have homes. I think 726 was by virtue of a variance granted quite a number of years ago. I believe 725, there was an old variance that actually created that lot back many, many years ago. And then that's how it came to have a house on it years later, actually. So there are two houses. And as far as maintenance, I would assume it's by the people that live on that road are the ones that have to maintain it. Obviously not town maintained.
So how do you figure the fire department feels like about that?
Well, should the board grant this variance, obviously prior to any permits being granted, they would certainly need to meet whatever requirements that the fire department might might require regarding the access, whether that means upgrading the roadway. Certainly, as we're aware, the town does have that regulation with regard to driveways that talks about if you have a driveway that's over 150 feet in length, it has to be a certain width and have clear shoulders. There has to be a turnaround for fire apparatus. So I'm assuming they would need to do some things to, if not the roadway, certainly the driveway going in, but perhaps the roadway also. But that would be, as far as the permitting process, that would be ironed out with fire and building.
And would this have to have any kind of planning board review at all?
With an existing lot of record like this, I wouldn't think so.
Okay, very good.
I have one question.
Mrs. Moran?
Are they building this with the intent to live there or sell?
No, the applicant is going to be the homeowner. They're actually relocating from the Denver area and are very anxious to move out into the beautiful New Hampshire.
Thank you.
Okay.
So the thing that I find interesting about this is that this Gill Road goes across several different pieces of property. And for the road to be brought to the fire department's specifications, this involves more than the person that's asking for the variance. Is that a safe assumption?
There is a waiver of liability.
All right.
Have we had, on the former applications, and I know one of these has been there for a while, have we had waivers filed on those parcels? Or were they even proposed?
As far as?
The municipal waiver of liability?
Oh, yeah. I mean, certainly for something like this, even though technically the variance is to having not quite enough frontage, because this lot does have frontage. Typically, when you're dealing with these, there's no frontage on an approved street. This one's a little bit odd in that it does have some frontage and lot width on an approved street, and that Gill Road at that point is apparently part of this property, but then it picks up after that where they're proposing access, which is part of another property. So it's certainly a bit of an odd case, but in any event, it's not a town-approved street, so yes, they would have to record a waiver of municipal liability and responsibility under the state statute.
That makes it simple then. Thank you.
Okay. If nobody else has any other questions, we can get some input from the public, because I think there's some folks here that would like to speak on this matter. So let's jump on over to looking for a butter input, or anybody who can be aggrieved, prove that they would be aggrieved by this decision of the board. And so we have those phone numbers are posted, Mr. Preventure?
Yes, indeed, Mr. Chair.
Very good. So as in our former case, it still remains the same. If you are remote and would like to be heard on the following two inputs, which is both for and against this application, you would call into 646-558-8656. The prompting, enter meeting ID number 323-909-140. And if you're having any technical problems getting into us, just dial 845-5585. And once you're into the meeting remotely, just press *9 and we'll recognize you. That being said, we'll make a call to the room and those folks that are in here now, and that is anybody that wishes to speak in favor of this application. This would be your opportunity to come forward. Seeing no gestures or anybody rise to that call, do we have anybody out there, Mr. Preventure?
Mr. Chair, yes, we do indeed have hands raised. We're not sure. They went up a little sooner than your announcement, so we're not sure if they're for or against, but in order of sequence, we'll allow Shirley Goodwin to unmute herself.
Very good. Mrs. Goodwin?
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Very well. How are you?
Good.
My concern with where this house is being built, I'm kind of confused. Is it going to be built, hold on, beside my house and our neighbor's house?
Well, I don't know where you live.
I live at 161 Warner Hill Road. This house, if you come down Gill Road, take a left onto Warner. I'm the second house. It's kind of set back.
Can you check the butter list for me? She is on it, okay. And can you define where she's at?
I'm right here, right there, 161.
Oh, very good. Thank you, Mr. Preventure.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
That's good.
Well, from what we're seeing is that the proposed house or home is down at the back end of Gill Road.
Closer to Warner or closer to Ballard Pond?
Closer to the pond.
Oh, okay. All right.
So does that relieve any concerns for you?
Yes, because I was under the impression they were going to build right beside me, and it's like, that's not a good spot.
Okay, well, very good. Well, we're going to take it that the proposal is what's presented here on this plan, and so that's the answer.
Okay, all right. Now, they're only building one house on 34 acres?
That's all that's being proposed currently. It looks like a 7-bedroom house.
Wow. Because when I seen, when it was for sale, I had seen some plans that they were going to build like 9 houses here.
I would say that you probably were not incorrect in that. I think I had a similar recollection at one point.
Okay, because my concerns are the wetlands. There's a lot of wetlands on that property that go onto my property, plus our quality of life. I've been here 18 years and I like it here and I like the quiet.
All right, well, duly noted, and I think in regards to the wet area and wetlands, the requirements and land development regulations would prevent someone from building in the water.
Okay, I just want to make sure that's addressed because the way the properties around here flow, they all flow down into, if you face my house, it would be the right-hand side, and it all flows down, and that's where a big part of the wetlands are that go out into the marshy area.
Okay, very good. You're
Okay,
all set?
thank you.
Thank you. And you have somebody else out there, Mr. Preventure?
Yes, Mr. Chair. We have someone who's dialed in, last digits 996. We will ask them to unmute by pressing *6.
Hello, caller. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Somewhat.
Okay, sorry. I'll try to speak a little louder, hopefully.
And you are?
This is Jay Driggers. I live at 165 Warner Hill Road, and the entrance to Gill Road abuts my property line. And so similar to Mrs. Goodwin, I have a couple of concerns. I'm not opposed overall to Mr. Hispa building a house down by the pond. My concerns are this would be the third easement to access property, through this dirt road, essentially, potentially more if there were subdivisions. And the road really isn't designed for a lot of traffic. And there's a couple of issues that I just want to make sure I'm specific about. Earlier, you were raising the questions about, it's a private road, so who maintains it? Along the border of my property is where my leach field is. It's literally 3 or 4 feet away from where this dirt road is. And so as they've built up, I don't know who's maintained it or who's been responsible for it. I think that's an interesting question. If multiple people, have houses, I'm not sure what the rules are and how that's handled. But they have recently, whoever did it, I don't know who did. I think it was a former owner who has since sold one of the properties. They added height to the road, so now the road is above my property line, and so when things are, salt and snow plowing and all of that other stuff, it is a dirt road, mind you. All of that ends up getting pushed into my property, right over my leach field. The second issue is a little bit further down the dirt road. Those wetlands that Mr. Miller was mentioning, they actually, whoever did the latest changes to the road, I think they've blocked some of the drainage, and now all of the wetlands are backing up against my property. They're not draining properly. So my biggest concerns are who's responsible to for maintaining all of that, and now my property is getting impacted potentially on 2 angles, right? The leach field side where the dirt road is, and then now this wetland backing up into my backyard, essentially. So again, overall not opposed to the person building a house, but the road really isn't designed for lots of traffic, and they're going to be bringing heavy equipment and things like that down. So I'm just mostly concerned about the wetlands issues and my leach field. I understand obviously there's going to be normal traffic for people coming in and out, but it's also things like heavy equipment and machinery and things of that nature. I definitely have some concerns around that.
Can we get a better identification as to, is this Mr. Rivers? Is that who it was?
Draggers.
Draggers, okay. Can we get better identification on the screen where he's at?
That address, Mr. Chair?
Sorry again?
That address, please?
Was that 165, Mr. Draggers?
Correct, 165.
I believe he's to the left of
You're looking at the properties, the right.
Looking at the map, yeah, looking at the angle we're looking at, it would be to the right of Gill, the property right to the right.
I see it. Very good.
That's
Thank you.
165.
So you're saying to us that your septic leach field is, over the years, the road has built up and it's blocking and there's not adequate drainage. Is that the issue?
Yeah, the more volume, right, the more traffic, the more plowing, the more all of that stuff happens, all of that gets pushed literally right onto my, I'm like a couple feet, my leach field ends from the edge of that dirt road. So that's one piece. And then it's hard to tell from the map here, but further down the road, there's drainage for the wetlands, and it looks like it's been stopped or not draining, so it's backing up into my property.
Well, I'm not hearing a usual identification with some of the concerns that we normally would have on a case or an appeal. What I would say is that your boundary line it must be against Gill Road, correct?
Yes. Part of it is against Gill Road, and then my backyard, where my backyard property line ends, I believe this property begins, and it's wetlands in the kind of dividing line there.
My suspect is, Mr. Mackey, over to you, is that any review that might end up having an issue on the road, any water that's being probably backed up and perhaps creating a softening of the road might be an issue that gets remedied in review of, say, the fire department on the driveway or something. Am I correct? Might be a requirement.
Well, fire might regulate how wide they want to see that road. Certainly, as I recollect, as you go down to where Mr. Driggers is talking about, there is a culvert that goes under Gill Road.
So that may have to be improved, or I don't know if that's the issue, if backing up the water that he's talking about, but I do know down that a ways there is a crossing right there that would have to be looked at perhaps to see what the issue is with that.
And the easement being an easement is something that's granted with the deed and outside of the bounds of the purview of this board. And understanding the inconvenience Mr. Dreggers is referring to, the board and the municipality, that's not something that we would intervene in. But what I would suggest is that if that's your primary issue, that you find remedy with the property owners that currently reside on Gill Road and try and work through the matter that way.
I guess, and I understand it's probably not for you guys to make the call. It's not clear to me who that is. If multiple people own it and have access to a private road, that's the part that I'm a little uncertain about. And if, a new owner's coming in as well, now I think it's 3 properties this would be in total. So I'm just a little lost on that, but I guess.
Did you make that out?
He has to deal with a lot of people. Is that basically what you're saying, is that there's a number of people that are involved in this easement, and then therefore you have to...
I think the question is who's responsible ultimately. Like, do I have to then go about my dealing with legal fees or whatever to get multiple owners to kind of handle what's impacting my property so that they can access theirs? That's the biggest concern I have. The wetlands.
If you can find a solution without that, yes, but it's not something that this board or the town would be involved in.
So then I guess I am taking issue with granting access to someone building the house then. Is that a fair reaction? I apologize, I don't know the rules and the processes very well, but.
We don't censor you from having an opinion on the matter, but it sounds like the issue has been already established with the current occupants of the road, not necessarily the new occupant of the road, were this board to grant the variance. So it's a remedy that you would have to try to resolve on your own. Typically, we're looking for issues relative to your property value, or some issue there that would diminish your property value. Outside of the 5 normal questions, remedying the damming of water by the current passerbys that have a legal right to pass by is not something that this board intervenes in. And we have the purview to sort it out of its relevance. Anything else? Mr. Dreggers?
I guess not.
Okay.
I guess not. No.
All right, very good. Thank you. Anybody else out there, Mr. Preventure?
Seeing no one else rise, Mr. Chair.
Very good. So we've made a call to anybody who would like to support this application. At this point, our next call will be to anyone who would be in objection to this variance. This would be your opportunity to come forward. Yep.
Mm-hmm. I don't know, again, if I'm objecting at all, I just have some questions. My name is Sean Brennan, 159 Warner Hill Road. Krista Brennan?
Krista Brennan, 159 Warner Hill Road.
Oh, welcome. I bet you watched this on TV and said, boy, one day I want to go there.
We couldn't wait to be here. I think we had some of the standard questions. I think some of them were answered. The size of the home was the 7-bedroom?
Yeah, that's what we're seeing on the proposal.
So what we were really looking into was how could this have a negative effect on our property value? So one of the questions was answered, and I guess if there were to be a proposal for more homes to be built on this, that would have to come back before the board?
Yeah, Mr. Mackey, feel free on that.
Yeah, I mean, in order to build more than one, certainly, unless they were granted variances for multiple houses, you would be looking at a subdivision.
Which is what we're
that would
hoping
be through
doesn't
the
happen,
planning
right?
board to create multiple lots and upgrade the road to town specifications and so forth, so there'd be a lot more involved. And certainly, if not in front of this board, it would have to go before the planning board for subdivision approval.
Is that something that we would be notified as residents and abutters to the
Typically
property?
with planning board, anybody that's within 200 feet of the property would be considered an abutter and would be noticed.
And I think one of the concerns was if there was going to be any homes, where in proximity would they be to where our property borders? It's a great view. There's a great pond back there. There's some great wildlife. So from our deck, the last thing we wanted to be looking at was somebody else sitting on their deck. No offense. It sounds like they're building a wonderful home back there. And if I looked where that pin was dropped, it does look like it's a bit further down. So I don't believe it's going to butt right up to our property. But that was what our concern was, is A, are they going to all of a sudden start taking trees down 50 feet from my stone wall? And B, will they be building a subdivision back there which will take out wildlife, wetland, et cetera, which will have a negative impact, I think, on our property. But if I look here, is that drop where the home is going to be built?
No, it would be further. There you go, the plan there.
You're welcome to view the map if you'd like before we proceed, if you'd like just a minute to take a look at it.
Looks lovely. All joking aside, I think a lot of the questions were answered, but I mean, I don't think we have any negative impact when it comes to the road itself. It is a difficult road. We see cars getting stuck at the edge. I know I've seen the issues with the neighbors that they've brought up, but that's, again, something that we don't have to deal with.
And it may be something that it's required to bring the whole road up to another standard that, by the fire department in order to be able to tend to it.
Right. So again, I don't have concerns. I think I just had a couple standard questions. It sounds like it's a large home. It may have a benefit on the property value, and should there be future development, it sounds like we'll be notified to come take a listen.
Yep. Okay.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak in opposition to this?
Mr. Chair, we do have another hand raised.
Very good.
Identified as Michael and Emily Brindamore. Will them access to speak.
Hello, my name is Michael Brindamore. I'm at 10 Gill Road, owner, recent owner. We purchased back in December. My concern is largely also with the impact to the road, which it's already been established that that's not really a matter for this board, but just wanted to raise the concern. The additional traffic on the road and anywhere, especially with building happening, that's going to happen with the large trucks coming down. I'm pretty concerned about that. Additionally, this house, I think, is going to be closest to my property than anybody else's around. It's going to be basically directly across Gill Road for me. It looks pretty far set back. I'm not too worried about it from that perspective, from what I could see on the pictures, but just wanted to kind of raise my concerns about those matters.
Okay. And what was it that you were concerned about?
Largely the impact to the road. As has been brought up, it's a dirt road. It is pretty susceptible to getting rutted with the traffic from plowing and whatnot. And so far, to answer a question from before about maintenance of that road, it's been shared by myself and the other owner.
I see.
On the road. So, it would be something that would need to be discussed further with this new owner coming in, that shared maintenance. But overall, just kind of concerned with that added pressure to the road.
Okay. Mr. Mackey, have we ever had an occasion, and I'm leading the witness here because I think we have, where we've had stipulations that maintenance had to be worked out with people as a part of their condition? Mr. Burgess, you look like you're full of an answer here. No?
Let's speak a little bit closer. I'm sorry.
Mr. Mackey?
I think the board probably has put that stipulation in, maintenance to be worked out between the individual parties.
Okay.
That occupy the street or the road.
Okay, in that case, I might have something. I don't recall ever doing that to anyone. Having an agreement. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I thought it was right.
I know that he was here. I know Mr. Preventer heard me.
Yeah. Anyways, I don't recall ever
301?
having an agreement or making them sign an agreement or do anything to that effect when we've done this, because that's their own private business and it's a private road. But that's what I recall.
Yeah, it just seems like there's something that we've had, and it's been quite a while. I don't really remember per se how it was resolved, but I just remember something of that nature. So.
Might have been a
May have been
suggestion.
a condition that was put in. I mean, it wasn't I don't think we've ever had anything formally that they've had to sign, other than the liability waiver. Certainly that has to be signed and recorded with the deed, so.
Yeah, and as I indicated with the former caller, right, it's not something that we get in the midst of a civil dispute, but something for them to work out and try to work out on their own. But at the same time, I understand what this current caller is speaking to. And I honestly don't know how you force the issue to have a resolution that this individual building a new home now has to have that discussion, right?
Yeah, and I think in this particular case where it's not like a Class 6 road or something where it's not owned by anybody per se. In this case, where there actually is ownership by two different parties, I think that the town can chime in and say, look, you need to upgrade this road or whatever to a certain standard, but then it's up to them to work it out with the parties involved as to how they do that. I mean, here we know that they have an easement, but still they obviously have to work that out with the other property owner that owns Gill Road.
Yeah.
So
and take some responsibility.
It's not up to the town to negotiate.
Right. Okay. Is Mr. Brindamore still there?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, very good.
Yes, sir, I'm still here.
I don't know if that answered your question or not, that discussion.
Yeah, it wasn't so much a question, just wanted to raise my concern. That's really all it comes down to. I understand there's not much the board is going to do in this situation, so.
Okay. Anything else?
Nothing from me.
Okay, good enough, thank you. And anybody else out there, Mr. Preventer?
Mr. Chair, we have someone dialing in right now. We might want to determine if they wish to speak.
Okay, and Mrs. Rio is alluding to probably that they do.
And we'll remind them to press *9 to raise their hand to indicate such.
Very good. Caller, press *9 so we can acknowledge that you'd like to be in the
And we do have a hand raised.
Okay.
This is a phone caller with the last digits 483.
She just called here, so she got in good.
Okay.
Ask them to unmute by pressing *6.
And this is a woman?
Hello?
Hi, good evening.
Good evening. My name is Joanne Gill. That's why the road is Gill Road, because my husband Michael and I built this house on that road. I've lived there 14 years.
Could I ask you, Mr. Preventer, is it likely she has her volume up? Can I get you to turn your volume down in the background?
TV.
Put it down, my volume, just a minute.
TV.
It always reminds me of Lou Gehrig's, leaving the Yankees, right?
Is it better now?
Well,
Gotta shut her.
I'm calling from, I'm out of town here. Can you hear me now?
Well, again, did you get the volume to your TV turned down?
I'm not on the TV, I'm on my cell phone.
Okay.
I put it down. I'll put it even lower.
Is your computer on?
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I think it would be
my computer's
a,
on. Should I do something on the computer?
Hang on just a minute. We're going to get some technical advice.
if she,
Okay, hold on. Just a minute.
she might have determined that. If there are multiple devices involved, we'll need her to turn the
Wait a minute.
volume down on one of those devices.
Is it better now? How about now?
There you go. Nice going.
It's better, thank you so much. Okay.
Oh, no,
So
thank you.
anyways, Mike and I built the house, let's see, I think I've lived there about 16 years. And then there's a house, as you just talked to the gentleman, the new owner is Michael, Brendan Durr. I haven't met him yet. But anyways, yes, the two people that live on the road maintain that road. There's no salt put on that road, it's just plowed. As you know, it's a private country road, and we have to maintain that. And every couple of years, we spend, anywhere from $4,000 to $6,000 just to maintain that road because it gets, soggy, it gets muddy and whatever, and especially the tree coverage over the road from the winter. The snow gets on the branches and it drips down and it really makes a lot of potholes, and so we have to have fill brought in and have grading done. So we have had, the last grading we did was 2 years ago. It cost the neighbor and me $6,000. So it's maintained by the people that live on that road. My only concern, I'm not against this gentleman building the road. I just am anticipating a lot of heavy equipment coming down that road, and you know what that does to the road. So I just want it to be the way it was before, after he's finished, because it's tough. It can be tough. That road can be tough in the winter if we don't maintain it. You have to maintain it on a yearly basis, or every other year. We just do it by, we have to just see how each season's going to be, and we have to grade it, and take care of it. Because the town doesn't do anything, as you know, it's private.
All right. Very good. And is that it?
I think so.
Okay, very good. Well, thanks for calling in.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm out of town, so I can't be at the meeting.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And anybody else, Mr. Preventure?
Checking now, seeing no one else rise online, Mr. Chair.
Okay, very good. If there's no one else here in the audience, we'll presume we've satisfied our statute, and we can welcome Mr. Geyer to come back up. Attorney Geyer, you have an opportunity to address and rebut any of the comments that have been made at your will.
Sure. I do know, and I'm an engineer, not an attorney. I just want to make that clear.
Sorry. By the way, I get everybody's name wrong up here, so.
I do play one on TV, evidently. But yeah, the proposed homeowner does want to be a good neighbor. I'm sure he'll help in maintaining the road, and I'll have him get in contact with the two other homeowners along that road so they can make sure that all the maintenance is shared between all the groups.
Okay. And anything else there? Anything? No? Okay.
Can you pronounce the owner's name so I don't butcher it too much?
Johan Hispa.
So thank you.
Did you happen to notice where I put my finding of fact worksheet?
I might have it hidden. You can use that for now.
Okay. Oh, here it is. I got it.
You're just making sure I didn't lose that.
No, okay. Does any of the board have any follow-up for Engineer Geyer?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Mr. Obimba, you all set?
All set. I had a question about subdivision or later subdivision, but that was answered, and they'll need to come before the board.
All right, very good, thank you. And Mr. Donlin, you all set?
All set, sir.
Okay. Mr. Tripp?
I'm done talking.
Okay. Well, in that case, we can take if there's nothing else to be vetted, we can take a motion to go into deliberative.
Want to wait for Donald to come back?
Yeah.
No, because he can't be in deliberative anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
He stepped
So
down.
moved.
Okay, thank you. And Mrs. Moran?
I'll second it.
Very good. All in favor of going into deliberation, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Mr. Tripp, how's your feelings on this?
Well, I think it's an awful large property for a single house, but that's his issue. So I don't see where any of the other criteria are not met, so it seems like a pretty good deal.
Okay. Mrs. Moran, any comments?
I agree. I feel the same, and I'm not trying to balance anyone's checkbook, but to put a 7-bedroom house that you intend on living, I'm hoping you'd want to take care of everything else around it.
Okay. Mr. Dietzel?
I don't see any diminishment to the surrounding property values. I think it's in the public's best interest, or at least not in their best interest. I think the 5 criteria are met, and as Mrs. Moran pointed out, a single-family home, even though it's rather large on a 34-acre lot, is not contrary to the public interest. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Mr. Obimba?
I share similar feelings to other members, mostly so with the criteria number 5. The shape of this lot and just owing all other physical properties here will be much more work to install this building somewhere else, so I feel like there will be some hardship to try and place this somewhere else. So the proposal here seems very reasonable to me.
Okay. And I think we noted on the staff report that this could end up having an occurrence where it may have to come back for some other variance. Is that correct, Mr. Mackey?
Well, I think it's since been determined that that was when I was thinking that Ballard Pond was actually part of the prime wetland. But apparently in rechecking with Engineer Geyer's guidance, we looked at that again, and certainly for whatever reason, when they mapped the prime wetland, it does stop further up Ballard Pond. So this is not within that, wouldn't be within the 150-foot buffer.
Okay.
So
that closes that window anyways. Okay. And so to my own points, 34, I can share the viewpoints of others that have already expressed. 34 acres for a 7-bedroom house is a pretty good lot size. It's hard to imagine that it creates any kind of substantial justice causes an effect in a negative way on the abutters, because they're so far out from any of the other abutting properties. And likewise, spirit of the ordinance, certainly this has exceeded that, and public interest really, other than the shared driveway aspect, is not a lot that we can do about that, other than hoping that the new occupant shares that responsibility just in a neighborly way, but it's out of the grasp or the bounds of this board. So that being said, I don't have too much opposition that I can speak of in this regard. So let's go to structuring the motion, which is the obtaining the state and town permits and inspections, and then the filing of the waiver of municipal liability and responsibility, which must be recorded with the deed. I will also say that in regards to the town permits and inspections, that the code enforcement department will make the direction on whether or not the review from the fire department would be necessary in this regard. Waiver of municipal liability or not, should there be assistance or aid needed, we certainly don't need to be having fire apparatus sinking during mud season. So that could create an endeavor for all parties concerned, which should help push the responsibility of shared maintenance on this private road. So anyway, that being said, does anybody else have any conditions they'd like to add to those two that are already on the agenda? Mr. Dietzel, Mr.
No, thank you.
You're all set right down the line? If you are, then we can take a motion to come out of deliberative session.
I'll make a motion to come out of deliberative.
Thank you, Mr. Dietzel. Anybody want to give us a second there?
I'll second.
Mr. Obimba has a second on coming out of deliberation. All in favor of coming out of deliberative, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Mrs. Moran, you have a motion to read.
I do, thank you. I make a motion on case number 23-109, Johan Hispa, to grant a variance to the terms of Article 3, Section 165-7, and Article 6, Section 165-48.b.2 and 3 of the Town of Derry zoning ordinance to allow the construction of a single-family dwelling on the property which has less than the required frontage and lot width at 4 Gill Road, parcel ID 07023, as presented with the following conditions. We have two. The first one is subject to obtaining all state and town permits and inspections. The second is waiver of municipal liability and responsibility must be recorded with the deed. And that concludes the reading of the motion. I need a second, please.
Second.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Tripp has a second. And to the finding of fact for case number 23-109, this application is for a single-family dwelling. The property is located in the low-density residential district, and the parcel lacks the required frontage on a town-maintained or approved road. All in favor of those two motions, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any corrections? Seeing no gestures there, so all in favor of moving this for a vote, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, Chair.
Opposed, ma'am.
I have one question. You put the parcel lacks the required frontage on a town-maintained or approved road. Do you want to emphasize that it's not a town-maintained or approved road? It's just wordy.
Yeah, I'm fine with the way it is.
Okay.
If anybody wishes to make a motion to change it or articulate better, you're welcome to.
That's fine, just make sure it was noted.
Very good. All right, it is with the board's right, by the way, that what the chair spells out has the individuals have the right to remedy and correct it, as Ms. Moran has brought forward. So that lesson being aside, I think I made a motion for us to move for the vote. And did you stop me from that?
I think I did, sorry.
No, that's fine. So all in favor of moving this for a vote, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Mr. Dietzel?
Yes.
Mr. Obimba?
Yes.
Mr. Tripp?
Yes.
Mrs. Moran?
Yes.
And Mr. Perkins will make that unanimous as well. So congratulations to your applicant, Mr. Geiser, that they have been approved by a vote of 5-0. Anybody aggrieved by this decision has 30 days to ask this board for reconsideration. And beyond that, recourse would be to Superior Court.
Thank you all very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Come back and visit. All right. So that being said, that's our last case of the evening. And we have approval of the minutes from March 16th. Are there any corrections that are necessary or needed, or does anybody need to table those?
I know Crystal has some
Yeah, I have a correction.
to me yet.
Okay. Everybody else is all set with
I'm sorry, Mrs. Moran, I didn't hear what you said.
I had one correction. There was just a sentence not in it that I felt was needed to be in it.
Okay. Do you need time to amend those, Ms. Rio? Are we all set with just
As long as she gives me the change, you can motion to accept them as amended.
Okay, very good. Could I have that motion, please?
So moved.
That motion, by the way, is to accept the minutes as amended. And Mr. Tripp has moved that motion, and I need a second, please.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Burgess. All in favor of approval of the minutes as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Very good. Motion passes. The amendment will be submitted by Mrs. Moran to Ms. Rio for correction. So the board has, the meeting was scheduled for April 20th, and we had, as the board had allowed the chair the discretion, Mr. Mackey and I, through our miraculous ways, decided to put the next meeting off till May, and that'll be May 5th, right? May 5th?
May 4th, I think.
4th, I'm sorry, yeah.
Because this room isn't available on the 20th because of council budget workshop.
Okay, so we will plan on seeing everybody in May. We have 2 cases currently?
One so far.
Okay, very good. Well, we have plenty of time to get more, don't we? Go out and beat the drum. All right, that being said, it's been a long day, and before we depart, I just want to recognize Alan Ver. Alan has been on this board for 20 years. He has not only served this board, but also served this community in other capacities, both for the municipality and outside of it. But Mr. Ver has decided to enjoy his retirement, and so he has not returned with us, and I just wanted to recognize him and all he's done. He has been a good influence on myself in the seat that I'm in, and he's an enjoyable associate to speak with on a number of things. So he will be missed, and I expect that I will see him from time to time on other matters, but otherwise, just wanted to give him that recognition and appreciate the time that he's dedicated to the town. So there you go. Anybody else have anything to add?
Here, here.
Give me a second. All right.
Well, I'll second that a couple of times.
All right, very good. Well, that being said, after that, we can take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Very good. Mr. Burgess has that motion. Somebody down on my left?
I'll second.
Mr. Obimba has a second. All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're adjourned. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night, all.